Okay, so good evening. Before I get started, I'd like to just offer and introduce two gentlemen who have been part of this SRI program before, Shima-san and Umeda-san, who just got back from California a couple of weeks ago. And if you have any questions about the program, they're the best guys to talk to. They've been through it, they've lived through it, so please use them as a resource, okay? So again, my name is Dennis Tsu. I'm with SRI International, and Neto has asked me to talk with you today about two things. The first is, why is innovation important? Why does innovation matter? Why should Waseda University focus on innovation? I want to talk about that first, okay? Then secondly, I will talk to you about a program that Umeda-san, Shima-san just have gone through that can help students, professors, research teams here at Waseda bring your ideas to the world market. And so those are the two things I want to talk with you about today. Okay? So first, a little bit on the need for innovation. And today we're in what we perceive as a global innovation economy. It looks like there's a fair number of students here in the audience. For you students, you're too young to remember a world before the internet. But for the professors in the room, you can remember a world before the internet. You can remember a world before cell phones, before computers. The world has changed a tremendous amount in the last 25 years. We just had the 25th anniversary of the internet. The thing to be aware of is that SRI believes, Silicon Valley believes, that the speed, the pace of innovation is increasing. It's going faster. And the world is going to change more in the next 25 years than it has in the last 25 years. And one of the challenges I think Waseda is trying to help Japan address is you're competing now not just with other companies in Japan, not just with companies in America, but with global competitors. India, China, Africa, all over the world. And I'll talk a little bit about that. The good news about the market and the opportunity is that populations are growing. That means there are more people, more consumers needing to buy more things. The bad news is that growth is outside of Japan. Japan is shrinking, right? Where are the markets growing? China, India, Africa. And so one of the challenges for Japan, for Waseda University, is how do you teach your students, how do you take your research projects and attack the global markets that are growing? That's part of why we are working with Neto to provide a global program to you. Because we're in Silicon Valley and we all live with computers, we know computers are getting faster every day, and smaller, and cheaper. By 2030, any of us will be able to buy a $1,000 computer that's about this big. It will have more computing power than the human brain. Think about that. What will that computer run? What operating system? I hope it's not Windows. What applications will it run? What would, if you can buy another brain and sit it next to you, so while you're sleeping at night, The brain can be working on something. What do you want it to do for you? Those applications, that software, you can invent. Because we know that over the last 30, 40 years, the number of devices connected to the internet has gone up exponentially. And this, not only are the devices going up exponentially, the speed of the connections are going up exponentially. So soon, you all have heard Apple just unveiled an Apple Watch. The Apple Watch talks to the iPhone, talks to everything else in your house. So 3 years from now, I will go into my kitchen at night. Umeda-san, Shima-san have been to my kitchen. They can tell you about it. I can go to my kitchen at night, I'll open the freezer door because I want some ice cream, daifuku. The refrigerator will talk to me and say, Dennis, your watch tells me you did not walk enough today, no daifuku for you tonight. Okay? That application is being developed now. And all of these devices, this is just an example of over 100 different startup companies that have already been funded to do what's called the Internet of Things. All of these devices are going to be connected. They will all talk to one another. From a scary perspective, they will all track you. So the internet will know where you are every minute of the day because you've got some device with you. Okay? What does that mean for all of us? Now, on a different note, we also know you can take a drop of blood from a finger, and again, a box about the size of 3 of these water bottles. You can put that drop of blood in the box, and it will do a complete DNA analysis of you in about 15 minutes. No need for a lab, no need for anything else. That will allow a doctor to say very quickly, you have the flu, you have dengue fever, you have Ebola, and here's the right medicine to treat you. Okay? That capability has, we are doing this now in the United States. And this is happening in many, many, many different areas. We call it regenerative medicine. Some of you may have seen stories about companies that can print an ear, if somebody's lost an ear, to replace it. Our scientists tell me that in about 25 years, any of us will be able to go to the doctor's office, and the doctor will give us a shot, and that shot will have stem cells and some gene therapies that are specific to you, and it will roll your body clock backwards 20 years. So 25 years from now, you can take 20 years off your age. You can be the same age as you are today. That capability, the science is there. There's all sorts of legal issues, there's all sorts of ethical issues, but the science is there. We're working with a large car company here in Japan to build new kinds of robotic systems so that your 80-year-old grandmother who's living by herself in a little village in Japan, who should not be driving a car anymore, she will be able to talk to her television and say, I need some more blood pressure medicine, I need some tofu, I want a piece of fish. Her television will talk over the internet to the store. And then there'll be a little robot in her garage that drives out, goes to the store, gets these things, and brings them back to her. She does not need to drive, but she can still get everything she needs. These kinds of applications are all being developed today. And so the challenge is that even big companies like Kodak, like Nokia, they don't exist anymore. They're gone. I know this is hard to believe in Japan, but even companies like Hitachi and Toshiba may not be there 10 years from now. How do they stay in business? How do they not become a dinosaur? By inventing new things, by innovating. And so, for universities like Waseda, and Harvard, and Stanford, and MIT, and Tohoku, and Tokyo University, the role of the university is changing. 500 years ago, the role of the university was to protect knowledge, like a castle. 300 years ago, they opened the doors and invited students in to teach and share knowledge. 150 years ago, they started doing research to advance knowledge. Today, the university is increasingly being looked on as a driver of economic growth. Neto believes, SRI believes, that part of the role of the university is to take your research, take your ideas, and help transform society. So, that's a little bit about the need for innovation. Now, why SRI? SRI, Stanford Research Institute, founded by Stanford University in 1946, here in Menlo Park. Again, Umeda-san, Shina-san has been here. About 2,000 people, about $500 million every year in research and development is what we do. We've invented lots of things over the years. The computer mouse was invented at SRI. The internet, we were one of the first 3 nodes on the ARPANET, which later became the internet. Intuitive Surgical, the Da Vinci Surgical Suite, lots of different things we've invented over the years. More importantly is, what are we researching now? We're doing a lot of work in biotechnology and health. Cancer detection, cancer treatment, diseases of aging, of people getting older, Alzheimer's and dementia. We're spending a great deal of research on trying to figure out how to teach our young people how to learn math and science better, because we think that's critical for them to be productive citizens 10, 15 years from now. Big group doing research on IT, computer science. Not so much how to build a faster computer. Intel and others are doing that. But how to apply that computer. So, couple of examples here. You all have heard of Siri on the iPhone? You talk to Siri. Most of you are too young, but when you have children, when they start watching you, they're going to watch you talking to your iPad, talking to your phone. And children today, young children, are learning that the way you interface with a computer is to talk to it. Not to type, to talk. And to make gestures with the Kinect machine. The way we interface to computers is going to be radically different in the next 10 years. I think keyboards are gone. Okay? We're also working on how to teach computers to see. So, you all have heard of the Google car, the self-driving car? How does that work? You have cameras all around the car, taking video images continuously. That's easy. What's hard is teaching the car, the computer, how to recognize a stop sign and where to stop the car. Or if a ball comes bouncing into the street and a little boy comes running after it, stop the car immediately. How does the computer process that image to know those sorts of things? That's the kind of research we're doing here, as well as further artificial intelligence. Building big engineering systems. This particular satellite dish is at Stanford. We built it, we still run it. It calibrates all the GPS satellites around the world. So if you get in a taxi here and the taxi driver's looking at those maps, we're responsible for making sure he gets you to where you want to go. We also build a lot of robotic systems here. So robots like the one I was describing earlier for the grandmother, but also, for instance, to go inside of the Fukushima reactor and take images of the damage there. And a big group focused on material science. I'll highlight biofuels and carbon capture as two big areas of research there. So we do research in all of these areas, and my group focuses on how innovation drives economic development. What's important for Waseda is that every year our $500 million in research and development, from that our scientists, people like you, 500 times a year, they tell our legal department, I've invented something I think may be worth patenting. 500 times a year. We actually only file 200 patent applications because we don't think everything the scientists think is neat, we don't always think it's neat. Of those 200 applications, the US Patent Office typically gives us about 100 patents, so only 50%. Of those patents, our objective is to sign 50 commercial licenses and start up 5 new startups every single year. $500 million in the top, 5 new startups out the bottom every single year. To do that continuously, to do that predictably, we've had to develop a process for how to manage that, and that's what Umeda-san, Shima-san have learned about. So that's a little bit about SRI. Now let me just comment briefly on a couple of challenges facing Japan. Japan spends more on R&D as a percentage of your economy than almost any other country in the world. That's great. Congratulations. The problem is that's smaller than the US and China. And China's growing the most rapidly in the world. So you will never be able to outspend the US and China on R&D. And you may be very smart, and you may work very hard, but I don't think you'll outthink them on just raw volume. So one of the questions becomes, where should Waseda University, where should Japan focus its R&D to be the world's leader? SRI is currently working with JST and their impact program to try and help the country figure out some of that. For you all, as potential entrepreneurs, as potential innovators, there's some challenges you should be aware of. Obviously, Japan has an aging population, and shrinking population. That's a challenge. The culture in Japan is very authority-based. It's very hierarchical. That's really not good. And consensus decision-making, also really not good for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs tend to like to break the rules. And so, how can you do that in Japan? Tolerance of failure. I've done 7 startups. Of those 7 startups, 1 was a big success. 2, so-so. 4, failure. Okay? That's okay. I've learned from that process. I'm a better manager, I'm a better entrepreneur today than I was before those experiences. That's hard to do here in Japan. And you have the blessing and the curse of a very large and very unique Japanese market. Which means if you introduce products for the Japanese market, you may have less competition, but it may be harder to take those to the world market. And so you need to think about that. And then lastly is a big country just over the ocean on the west who are trying to take over the world. And you know, we have to all compete with them. So when, in the early 1900s, Henry Ford revolutionized the world with mass production. When I was your age, when I was in college, Deming helped Japan, Toyota, Sony, lead the world. When I was in college, the best companies in the world were in Japan. Today, that's not so true anymore. Today, the leaders are seen as coming from Silicon Valley. The challenge Neto has asked us to help you with is to help Japan regain leadership in the innovation economy.